Welcome, welcome everyone. It is Book Experiences with Saf. Once again, I am Safia and I am here to help you experience books the way they were meant to be enjoyed. I have with me tonight Janoise, Cassandra, Rolando, Alcinda, Tammy, and Jesse. And for those of you who are watching after the live recording, welcome. Please feel free to take notes, pause this video, rewind, go back, whatever it is that you need. We did have an introduction to the Assertiveness Workbook. That is what we're working with right now. And you may go ahead and look at that video first and then come to this one. And tonight we are going to be looking at barriers to assertiveness. So let us just go right ahead into our presentation. So the Assertiveness Workbook, barriers. There are three main barriers to assertiveness. The stress response is housed within our body. It is the helper response to perceived threats and is critical when we are really in danger. The stress response produces symptoms to alert and move you. Assertiveness is meant to improve our interpersonal relationships. However, it does cause disturbances with close relationships, especially if your style was passive, although it affects the other two styles as well. Those who are close to you have become comfortable with your communication style. Changing it is not initially welcomed and is resisted. There will be pushback to get you to return to your former style, even if that style was not desirous. Our behavior and emotions depend more on our interpretation of events than on the events themselves. It is our interpretations that produce most of our reactions. And where do interpretations come from? First, from our appraisal of the event itself, and then the system of beliefs about yourself, others, the world around you, and how it works. All these things lend to how you are influenced. So these are the barriers that hold people back from using the assertive style predominantly in their communication with others. Let's look a little closer at each barrier. The stress response is a system of reorganizing the normal functions of the body to give top priority to running and fighting. The trigger for the stress response to be activated is a perception that we are under threat. Responses affect heart rate and muscles to move faster, increase blood volume with heart pumps, increase respiration to allow for more oxygen and burn energy. There is rise in the blood sugar from the liver to fuel muscles, and there's increased blood supply to large muscles and decreased supply to the skin and digestive system. The release of endorphins, that's your natural painkillers, among other changes happen in the body. Although sustained levels of heightened endorphins actually increases pain sensitivity. So what's up with the medical review on stress, Saf? Well, it is your appraisal of these events around you that triggers the response in your body. It can be a boss frowning at you. If you do not see the boss frowning, there is no reaction. You cannot interpret what the frown means, and therefore you cannot respond. But if you see your boss frowning and you think, I got to work late for the last time, I'm about to be fired. If you think that the frown is to let you go from a job, then you are going to have stress triggered in your body. here are other examples. You know, your child screaming in the store. Is the child screaming in the store because maybe they just banged their finger on a canned good? Or are you interpreting that because they did not get what they want before you went into the store, they are now having, you know, a tantrum, and this is now embarrassment for you? So depending on how you interpret an event, it can trigger the stress response. So we need to overcome stress, and you can cope with stress. You can deal with the situation itself. Example, confronting the person who is responsible. You can reevaluate your appraisal of what is happening. Perhaps you're making too much of the situation. Deal with the bodily response through relaxation techniques and some lifestyle changes if you become stressed too easily. All right, so those are some assertive ways to deal with stress, and here you can see some other ways to build a stress-related resistance within your body. All right, so we're gonna do a quick activity, and I call it Not a Stress. And this is from questioning strategies that's in the book. Is my life in danger? Will being tense help the situation? What is the worst thing that could happen? Which one of these do you need practice? Try these strategies for questioning and altering your appraisals. So I'm going to bring you out now, and let's just quickly talk about this. And if you'd like to write, now would be a good time to do so. So I'm gonna ask someone to just paint a quick picture, a storyline, something that you think could trigger stress in people. And let's go through and kind of work that out. Who would like to start?
Let's say you're in a situation where you have multiple people asking you to do things or asking you for things. Like if that's maybe what your work life is like, or maybe you're a mom who has kids and they're all trying to get your attention and you have a list of things to do, like that kind of stress.
All right, so let's give it a number. How many people?
Oh, 3, I guess. Is that realistic?
All right, 3 people. Are they loud? Or different?
Maybe one of them is loud and 2 of them are not loud.
Okay. Is this within the home, outside of the home?
Let's say this is a work situation.
Work situation. All right. So work situation, 3 people are asking you to do something. Is it all considered kind of urgent? Everyone's request is urgent?
I would say they probably think their request is urgent, but like you need to, obviously in that moment, you need to like try to prioritize because you can't do everything at once.
All right. I like this storyline. I'm going to add to it a little bit so as to try and trigger stress, okay?
Okay.
So let's say that this person is going back to work after this quarantine and they don't feel well. And for the first half of the morning, they've been wanting to cough. But they know that will trigger stress in other people about themselves, okay? Let's add that to the picture. All right, so you have your 3 people. I'm going to make one person a friend at work who calls in to say they have to quickly leave the office for an emergency, and they're asking you to finish typing up their paperwork that is due at the end of the day. All right. Somebody wants to give me another scenario for 2 other people. I don't want to be the only one like coloring this story.
Let's say the other one is a manager who is asking you to get your own work done and just like being annoying.
All right, good. All right.
Being micromanaging.
The third person, what should the third request look like?
I guess the third person could be maybe like someone that you're charged with mentoring or like onboarding, you know, that could be really stressful.
All right. We have a story here. Now imagine you are that person. So you have your own assignment. You have been wanting to cough all day and you have the stress of wanting to cough, but not wanting to alert anyone and not wanting to have people feel uncomfortable around you. So you have something going on within your body. Then you have your annoying manager who is asking you to get some things done in a very short period of time because a lot of work time has been lost over this pandemic. Yes. Now your friend is pulling on your emotional strings and is asking you to cover for him or her. And on top of it, you have this mentee who what? Who needs your time?
Yeah, I guess who's new to the job and needs to be told
new to the job, and you need to show the person around, but you don't have time. Especially with the other friend's document that's considered maybe, you know, a little confidential. So here are your questioning strategies. Is my life in danger? You may feel, if you feel like your job is in danger, you may actually feel like your life is in danger. But if you can answer the question, is my life in danger? Everybody, what's your answer?
No.
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 All right. Will being tense help the situation?
No.
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 No, it won't. But then you can't help it. You will be tensed because of the situation.
You will be tense.
You
Yeah,
can't
but
help
be
it. You
tense
will be
or
tense.
you will be tense. Is it you have to be tense? Is it a choice?
No.
Jesse says, no, it's not a choice. You must be tense. Anyone else?
Because I just feel it's the human behavior. Like something stressful, you just get tense. It's like if you hear something from supervisor, you won't drink coffee, you won't chill. You'll be like, oh my God, this happened. So it's like the natural response you would give, you would be tense.
Okay.
That's what I feel.
Anyone has a different answer? Do you have to be tense?
I think it's kind of like your immediate reaction is probably tension.
Exactly.
But you can always like reset yourself.
Okay.
To do whatever, like take a deep breath or that type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Like I think you can initially, your body will initially be tense, but then it's what you say to yourself soon after that can prolong it.
All right. What's the worst thing that could happen?
Lose the job.
Yes. But maybe if you're coughing, you may think that the worst thing could happen is that you have contracted COVID. That may be worse than losing the job.
Oh boy.
Well,
Anybody else? What's the worst thing that could happen? For some
fuck
people,
up
it may
again.
be losing the relationship. If
Yeah,
it
you would get
happens,
into a
and if
fight
that
with the
person
supervisor.
ends up getting, some sort of reprimand at work, don't get a promotion.
Yeah.
Or the worst thing that can happen is have a rough day.
Yeah, the worst thing that could happen is that it was a really, really rough day. All right. So these are just 3 quick questions that when these really stressful events, and you notice I said stressful events because we have a way of deciding what already is stressful or not. But I shouldn't say stressful events. When events take place, it is our interpretation of it that will trigger the stress response. And I think the thing that surprised me the most was about blood not going to the skin and the digestive system. And if you think about having your body trigger a stress response constantly, what it is doing to your health. So that for me was the most surprising thing. So if anybody cares about their skin and if anybody cares about their digestion, at least have that in the back of your mind to say, okay, I need to calm down. I need to calm down quickly. I cannot let my body go into this sort of thing. And I think also the thing about the endorphins, which is our natural painkiller. So for instance, if a large table were to fall on somebody that you love, the stress response would allow you to pick up something that is heavy that would probably be painful before, but isn't in that time with all the hormones and the blood rushing to your muscles and all of that. But imagine if being in traffic in New York City triggers that response. And imagine if you are driving maybe a total of 3 hours for the day. If you live in maybe Staten Island or Jersey, and you're driving back and forth, if you are constantly triggering your stress response, it is having a significant impact on your body. Yeah. All right. So thank you for that. Let's continue. All right. The social barrier. Any change in style, even a welcome one, can be alarming to the people close to you. It signals that things may need to change as well. As a result, you may notice some of the people in your life becoming anxious as you become more assertive. It's a good idea to tell them that you are trying to change your style. Above all, be brief and casual. You aren't becoming a completely different person. Change isn't going to be all that sudden. All right, so we're going to look a little more at the social barrier. There's the history problem. This is where your friends and family have learned to interpret your behavior. As you practice assertiveness, even in a relaxed, friendly way, they may misinterpret your attempts. Keep at it and they'll learn. The control problem. People like to be powerful and in control. It helps us feel secure. If someone can control you, it becomes extremely convenient to them. So to become assertive is to take back power for your own life from others who had it. No one likes to lose power. So expect resistance. Here is a caution for those who are in violent relationships. If someone in your life has a history of violence towards you, they may feel accustomed to having that control. And if you take control back, that will have them feeling threatened, and they actually may engage in more violence. So please seek additional help or counseling to deal with your situation. Boundary setting problem. Assertiveness often involves setting boundaries around what you will and will not tolerate, especially if it affects you. Others will struggle against it. Stick to your new rule of assertiveness. Giving in under pressure is a very bad idea. If you do, they will be led to believe that adding more pressure to you is what is needed for you to give in. For boundary setting to work, you have to note these points. Only set boundaries you are willing and able to defend. 2, don't start getting assertive when you are strained to the limit. 3, don't back down. And 4, don't become assertive with everyone at once. Just pick one person at a time. The gender problem. For barriers to women being assertive. You see, gender-based ideas and expectations can create barriers whether you are male or female. For women, they often find that barriers are particularly demanding, widely held, and difficult to leap over. Most of these barriers enforce passivity. You were raised to serve others. You were raised to be nice. Your job is to be nice, and nice means never to say no or disagree or have boundaries to reveal your own desires and opinions. Your relationship is your worth. Without a romantic relationship, you're nothing. You are the family maid, and for the man, maybe you're the family butler. You are the old family retainer. That means you're expected to care for your elderly parents. If you are a sister and you have a brother, it's going to be more expected that in this culture, let me be clear about that. In this culture, it may be expected that the female, the woman, cares for the elderly parents. You are the junior partner or employee. You are not as important as a man. These are some of the boundaries that women experience. And in public settings, you don't receive the same courtesy as men. You may be less likely to obtain a loan and more difficulty receiving adequate service. I had one such experience today. Okay, for men, they find themselves pulled away too from assertive responses based on gender expectations. Some of these pull toward aggressiveness, while others passive and passive aggressive. These examples are like, a man is a man. You were raised to believe that real men are aggressive, pushy, and demanding rather than asking for what they really want. On another point, obey or else. Another one, a man has no self. The role of a man is to be the breadwinner and selfless warrior on behalf of others. He has no personal interest, needs no breaks, and requires no nurturing. He is a rock, emotionless and solid. As a result, he can ask for no help. He can't share emotion and speak of his own needs. And lastly, the barrier for men to be assertive is that a man can take it. So to be overwhelmed by work is a sign of weakness. The belief barrier. Within the belief barrier, we don't really react to what is going on in the real world. We react to what we think is going on. A situation leads us to appraise what's going on, but that interpretation is fed by beliefs, which tailors our response. Any number of distorted beliefs can cause us to behave in an unassertive manner. Fortunately, many of the most common of these distortions have been identified under the category of the communication styles: passive, aggressive, and passive aggressive. So in the following slides, as you read the list, consider whether you have each belief. You may think that a certain belief is clearly false, but you hold it anyway. The real test is whether you behave and react emotionally as though the belief was true. All right, so these are the beliefs. I want you to go ahead if you want to write down the ones that you think apply to you. And if you want to go ahead, I'm going to ask someone to read the beliefs in the teal or blue box. Let me see. Miss Janoyce, may I ask you to read the first box, please?
Assertiveness means getting your own way all the time. Being assertive means being selfish. Passivity is the way to be loved. I am only worthwhile as long as I'm doing something for someone else.
Thank you. All right, so if you feel that any of these relate to you, please go ahead and write that down. It's simply a belief, and when we get to the root of the things that we believe, we can actually then begin to change how we respond. All right, for the second box, I am going to ask Alcinda. Can you read that for me, please?
The way to be accepted and appreciated by others is to give and give. It is impolite to disagree. If others disagree with me, then I must be wrong. I have to do everything I am asked to do. Wow.
Rough, right? Sometimes we really don't know some of the things that happen in our subconscious mind, you know?
Exactly.
Sandra, can you please read the third one?
Sure. Other people can't handle my assertiveness. If I start speaking up, I'll never stop. It's important to be nice. My opinion doesn't matter.
All right. So these are the beliefs that support a passive role. If you're ready for me to move on, can you just go ahead and give me a thumbs up? All right, thank you. All right, let's move on to the next slide. I am going to ask Jessie. Jessie, can you please read the first one?
I'm entitled to be angry.
Tammy, are you able to speak?
Yes.
Okay, can you read the second one for me, please?
If I'm not aggressive, nothing will happen.
Thank you. Chantel, the third.
Honesty is the best policy.
Interesting that this is in a belief in the aggressive role, right?
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
so true. Honesty is the best policy.
I think the reason for this is because persons who use the aggressive style think that honesty really means that they can be rude.
Yeah.
And demanding, and they do not have to curtail anything that they say.
Yes.
And so,
Like just giving their opinion bluntly on a matter and not considering the other person, you know, on the receiving end.
mhm. And so unfortunately, honesty has been used as a way to offend and to wield really sometimes some hurtful and nasty words to others, you know, under the guise of honesty.
And truth.
Mhm.
After all, it is the truth.
It's their perception of the truth. Yes. All right. And Rolando, I'm going to ask you to just read all of this, please. It's just 2 points.
People should be more considerate. I'm afraid of trying to be assertive and failing.
All right. Anything that is there anything surprising to anyone? Let's just talk about these beliefs quickly. We started talking about the honesty is the best policy. Anything else jumps out at you?
Yeah, the one that I got. If I'm not aggressive, nothing will happen. Well, I wouldn't say I'm aggressive, but sometimes I think that way. If I don't do it, it will never happen. So I found that interesting that I got that one. Not that I'm aggressive, but you know, perhaps. Let's see. I'll give that some thought.
Well, let's explore that a little more. So, is it that if you do not do something that needs to be done, it won't happen? I think that is more from the passive belief. But if it is that you have to control people and make them do something, and if you are not aggressive to them, it won't get the work done, then that's the aggressive style.
Okay.
So which one are you thinking of?
I'm still thinking. I think it's a fine line dealing with children and picking up things and doing what they should do.
Yes, I think every parent will be able to identify with that for sure.
I think I would go with people should be more considerate. Only because in my personal experience, I've dealt with someone who was like above me in a position who they weren't my manager, but they were like kind of like in between a manager and a coworker.
Yes.
And the way they went about issuing work or passing along things that had to be done, I didn't think that. I thought I would kind of always come clash with that person because okay, I have my responsibilities, I have the way I do things, and I'm always open to other people, you know, give me suggestions of how to do things, but don't just tell me to do something the way you want to do it because you think it's the best way. You haven't considered other people's ideas. You know what I mean?
So how can you be more assertive in that situation? Because it's saying that
I have to be aggressive.
Under passive aggressive. So
I was aggressive.
Assert yourself.
A wise person told me to just wow, that's hard to answer because at some point I had to be quiet and just listen, and I don't know how to answer that.
Okay.
It's because it's when I deal with something like that, the one thing I want to do is I try to find someone else to come in and support me. But in most cases,
that may be considered aggressive.
That might be, but then at the end of the day, what really happened, this is the truth, is I had to zip it, you know, keep it cool and listen, and then I had to think about my response, how I respond to this person instead of just responding.
Okay.
Like this person's attacking me, I have to think a different way. This person is not trying to attack me. This person just needs to get something done. And I just have to go about communicating that back in a way that I don't get, a confrontation. So there you go.
Wow. Chantel?
I was just two of them kind of combined for me was the one I'm afraid of trying to be assertive and failing, and being assertive means being selfish. Because for the first one, I mean, nobody likes to fail, but I think like there's like a fear of being assertive because you don't want to come off as being a certain way. Like you don't want to come off as being assertive, but maybe assertive feels aggressive to you, or maybe like, I don't know, that's a tough one to overcome because we all have these ideas of what it means to be selfless, and nobody wants to be selfish and put themselves first. But like, I don't know. Obviously, I either need to think about what I think assertiveness is, or think about what I think selfishness is, and like get over some assumptions that like I can be assertive without being selfish.
Yes.
And help myself and help others in the process of being assertive. But that's kind of hard. That could be really deeply ingrained, like the way you were raised or how you were taught to behave. Sometimes being assertive, you feel like you're going against those kinds of things, but yeah.
I think also from a cultural point of view, Jesse, you can help me to speak.
I was waiting for
sometimes assertiveness may be considered rebellion.
Yeah. So as she said that no one wants to be selfish, but when it like we live in a world right now where I don't know, I feel like people have started to become selfish, especially this pandemic. It has changed a lot of things, and I believe not only in this country, everywhere. Like I believe it's the whole world because the whole world faced this pandemic, and now people are only thinking about themselves, like especially during this COVID-19, people are like saving themselves first. So you see, for example, if you go outside and if you see someone cough or someone is like feeling sick, you wouldn't go and help the person out. You wouldn't go near the person. You wouldn't touch the person. You wouldn't call 911 for their help or something. You would be like, oh my God, the person has COVID, and you will run away because you don't want to be infected. So think about that. Isn't that being selfish? And if you leave the person alone, own that person, it can happen that the person can die by himself or herself. So isn't that also being selfish, thinking about yourself, like, oh, let me save myself, I don't care about that person, like that person might have COVID-19. So that's also a point where things have changed and people have started being selfish. And it's not only about this case, it's in many cases right now. And then, as she mentioned, like no one is born selfish. Like everyone is raised in different ways. And there are some children who, like, they see, they look at things and they see the way their parents are, and that's how they learn. They observe and they learn. And even and if you tell them in future, like if they're in school, and if you tell them, oh, that's like selfish, don't do that with your friend, and it's like, oh really, but I see my mom do that, I see my dad do that. So children can observe and learn. Like it's like they're not like taught to be like, don't be selfish, don't do that, but they can observe and learn things because the surrounding around them is like they are seeing that people are selfish. In my culture, yes, as Safia mentioned, that in our culture it's like people like living in joint families, and it's like you share everything. And then but then like there comes a point when in life when you be like, okay, I've shared enough. I need my privacy now, or there are stuff like what I can't share, but it is what it is.
Okay. So I guess that is something that you would have to personally work on, because you have the cultural aspect,
Mm-hmm.
where the expectation of the family unit is that everything is shared. And then on top of it, you're a woman. So you may be expected to not necessarily have time to yourself. Like your time is for serving others and kind
Yeah.
of have a mindset, everything for the family. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Like, and if you don't give them time, or if you're keeping some time to yourself, like you need some privacy, they will think that you're ignoring them or you're not giving that much time to them. And then that's not true. It's like you're not, like, you don't want to ignore them or not give them time, but you're just keeping some time to yourself, and you want to be in privacy, but they don't understand that.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for that. I think it's very pertinent at this point in time that we each think about how does assertiveness work, as we re-enter a different kind of life, as the different cities are opening up and traveling is opening up. What does assertiveness look like in regards to wanting to stay safe, but not wanting to treat everyone as if they are a walking, breathing pandemic for which you need to be fearful of? Something to think about.
I was just thinking when Jesse was talking about how a lot of what it means to me, or I guess maybe part of the reason that being assertive is scary is because it requires us to really look at our emotions, I guess, like where our emotional boundaries are, like, if a situation is making you unhappy, instead of just like squashing down the unhappiness or the anger or whatever, or the fear. Sometimes, like, I think in order to be assertive, you need to kind of address your emotions and then, create boundaries or state your needs accordingly after addressing those emotions, instead of just kind of like trying to be like, everything's fine, I'm fine, because in order to be assertive, we have to like, what is it that I need to navigate this world in a healthy way and navigate relationships in a healthy way?
Right.
Which sometimes is like, even that sometimes can feel selfish, like just, yeah. And more of a process than maybe I realize.
So I guess one thing that we can do is to redefine what you think selfishness is.
Mm-hmm.
That may help. One of the first things that we said in the other video is that assertiveness is about being there. It's about being present in the moment. So when you express this thing of, instead of just saying I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, which is the automatic response, whether it be in person, whether it be in text, people just have a way to say, I'm good. How are you? Nobody, very few persons, if I ask them, how are you? They are actually able to, in that moment, say exactly how they are. They may fish for how they felt 5 minutes ago, 5 days ago, 5 months ago. You may have, I'm good, working things out. It's a way of not really tapping into what you're saying, tapping into exactly what is going on with you in that moment, and it be okay. That if someone asks you every day for the next 5 days, how are you? And you say, I'm not okay, but I'm not ready to talk about it 5 days straight. You need to be okay with not being okay and not being ready to talk about it either. you know, and have that space and hold it to say, this is where I'm at, and it's okay to be here. I think, yeah, that would be great. Well, thank you. All right, let's move on. That was good. And this is our last slide, believe it or not. So being unassertive has done more damage to my relationships than being assertive ever could. And with that, I am going, if anybody, let me just ask you, please, before we finish, just go ahead and write this down. We're going to take some time to talk about this. I'm going to be assigning this as homework. So if you have the book, or if you want to get the book, those of you who are watching on YouTube, this is homework from page 61. So this statement was made in 61, page 61, but you can make your own statement in regards to how you want to be built assertively in your communication. You see, it's not enough to understand that you are entitled to have opinions and the right to express them. You actually need to create a new belief and repeat it to yourself, or borrow this one. Try to catch negative beliefs every time it comes up. Then repeat the more rational alternative to yourself. Don't worry if it sounds false for a while. Gradually, the new belief will become part of you. So I'll read this again. Being unassertive has done more damage to my relationships than being assertive ever could. And that ends our presentation. All right. Who says yay or nay to that statement? Thoughts?
I agree. I think based off of just my, my life experience, I've learned that, I think the people who I think are meant to be there in your life and their long-term can, I think, walk with you through those kind of like challenges when you go from not being assertive to going to being more assertive. I think, if you have solid people around you, they can walk with you through that transition. And I think for those who aren't, or I think they can sometimes be put off because they're like, well, you're a different person now. You were passive, now you're more assertive, and and you're not who they thought you were. So it kind of feels like you're maybe being disingenuous, even though you're growing into knowing yourself. So I think that's what I've seen in my life, is just that you learn that when you're being more assertive, and I think with everything you have to be led, I think, to know the balance so that your assertiveness has its rightful place.
Yes.
So that what it's allowing you to do is really tap into who God created you to be. So you come out of a false self and to who you're supposed to be.
Good, thank you. Anyone else? Thoughts on this?
I just really agree with what Cassandra, sorry if I'm saying it wrong, just said. I like that being assertive is almost being like more open about how you're feeling and what your opinions are. And like, even though that's scary, that's something that's definitely worth it in a relationship in the long run, So I like that thought a lot.
I guess I'll say, if I put it in the context of how I met my wife or whoever I was with before, those taking those things into account, I guess that statement would be true.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I wasn't forward and honest and straightforward who I was, who I am, then I could never get the other person to trust me and open up, especially if you're dealing with people who put up barriers because you don't know what their situations were growing up or things that happened to them in the past. So it's very important that that if you have someone like that close to you, that to gain their trust, that you have to be that way. You have to be, I guess you have to have some type of assertiveness there. They have to see that. I don't want to confuse assertiveness with confidence, things like that, but that all mixes together. So.
Great, thank you. Because I think, especially when we think about romantic relationships, it is needed to be confident, assertive. If you're not confident, you're not going to truly reveal, as Cassandra said, and Chantel echoed, really be who you are, open. And at some point in time, the real you is going to come out. It's going to come out either from stress or just from the natural flow of being with someone for a long period of time. And I think the one thing that must be a painful thing to hear is for someone to say, you are not the person I married, or you are not the person I dated. You know, I mean, those have to be really, really difficult things to hear. And so I like what the book said, that for your closest relationships, you may need to inform and say, hey, I'm trying to change the way that I communicate. And so when you see or hear me acting differently, speaking differently from what you are accustomed to, it's not some radical change. I haven't become a different person. I'm not on drugs. You know, I'm not in some secret cult to try and make everything difficult for you. But I have found I have not been honest with myself. And so now that I'm taking that journey, it is going to show in the way that I'm communicating, and I'm asking you to bear with me because I'm going to get it wrong. And it's probably going to come off, you know, as being selfish sometimes. But he said to be just brief, be very casual, don't make it into a very deep, you know, conversation, especially I think if you have that passive role and you have to deal with people who have had control over you, and you've never really had the ability to say no and keep your no, that you're gonna get pushback. It's going to be resisted, but keep at it. All right. Well, this was awesome. Thank you very much. I am going to end the recording, and then if we want to chit chat a little more, this one was not as deep as last week emotionally for us, so that's why I allowed the recording to continue so we can share openly with the world our thoughts on these things. So I do want to thank my participants again. You are faithful people. I appreciate you, and we will see each other next week.